Tyler is telling the table about the new lease. Wider screen, faster pickup, heated seats. Everyone leans in. He taps his card without checking the number on the screen. The same easy tap he made in this seat 6 months ago, before the last car was even paid off. Here's what nobody at that table knows. There's a second account that actually decides how this ends for each of you, one nobody photographs, and the whole gap between you two in 10 years comes down to whether you're quietly building it or quietly ignoring it. We call it the quiet position. Stay for how that account gets built, because it has almost nothing to do with income and everything to do with a short list of boring decisions most people never write down. That list is what Whitfield Money hands you next. Marcus doesn't say any of that out loud at the table. He orders the same thing he always orders, pays his half in cash the way he has for years, and drives home in a car that's older than the lease Tyler just signed. Nobody at that dinner would guess that Marcus crossed 6 figures in his personal accounts before he turned 26. Not because he earned some enormous salary, because for roughly 3 years he ran his money through a short set of rules that never once made it into a conversation at that table. And today, those rules are getting written down for the first time. Recent data on retirement balances shows that people in their 20s sit at a median in the low 40,000s, while the average, pulled upward by a much smaller group of high savers, runs well above that. That gap between the median person and the person who's actually ahead isn't a gap in income, it's a gap in method. Everything below is the method, in the order it actually mattered, starting with the one decision that made every other decision easier. If you want the rest of this list broken down in plain numbers instead of vague advice, hit subscribe right now, because every video on this channel works the exact same account, one rule at a time. The first rule is that the decision gets made once, on paper, and never again in the moment. The week Marcus started his job, he sat down with his very first paycheck and decided exactly what percentage would leave his checking account the day it arrived, before rent, before groceries, before anything else got a vote. He set up the transfer, and then he did something almost nobody does after setting up a transfer like that. He never opened that account to check on it out of curiosity. He let it become boring on purpose. That single choice is backed by something researchers keep finding across totally different income levels. Retirement plans that use automatic enrollment and automatic increases consistently produce savings rates that run close to double the rates of plans where people have to opt in and adjust manually every single time. The reason isn't intelligence, and it isn't income. It's that a decision made once, before the money is visible, never has to survive a Friday night, a birthday, a new lease sitting in a parking lot. It just happens. Tyler, on the other hand, decides every single month, in the moment, with whatever's left over. Some months that number is generous. Most months, after the payment, the insurance, and whatever dinner just happened, it's close to nothing. He's not undisciplined, he's just fighting the exact same decision, from scratch, every 30 days, and losing more often than he wins. That's the difference between a rule and a mood, and it's the first crack in the account nobody can see. Drop a quick comment with which one you already do without thinking, the automatic transfer or the manual decision every single month, because the honest answer usually says more about you than the number in your account does. But automating the transfer only protects money that's already been decided into existence. The next rule is about where that money actually comes from in the first place, and it starts with a question almost nobody asks about anything they buy. Every purchase has two prices. There's the number on the receipt, and then there's the second price, the one that keeps charging you long after the first one clears. A car has a purchase price, and then a second price made of insurance, depreciation, and the interest quietly working against you if it's financed. A bigger apartment has a rent number and a second price made of furniture you now feel obligated to buy so the space doesn't look empty. Almost nobody adds up the second price before they buy. Marcus started doing exactly that, on paper, before every purchase over a certain size, and it changed almost nothing about what he enjoyed, and almost everything about what he owned outright. Take the lease Tyler just signed. The sticker excitement is the first price. The second price is a fixed monthly obligation that doesn't care if his hours get cut, his industry has a rough quarter, or he simply wants to try something else with his career next year. Industry data on new vehicle financing has shown average monthly payments climbing into territory that quietly locks a huge share of drivers into a payment larger than their monthly savings contribution, sometimes larger than what they put toward retirement entirely. That's not a car. That's a second job, whose only benefit is heated seats. "You only live once," Tyler said, half joking, when Marcus asked if he'd run the insurance numbers first. Marcus just smiled and said he was more interested in living twice, once now and once later, and that the second one required a little math tonight. Nobody at the table laughed, because nobody understood yet that he meant it literally. Rule 3 has nothing to do with cutting things out, and everything to do with where you put things that already look identical from the outside. Marcus kept a cushion of money untouched for the exact kind of emergency that derails most people's plans. The difference is where he parked it. A standard checking or savings account at most banks pays almost nothing, a fraction of a percent that barely moves the number at all. A high-yield savings account sitting in the exact same kind of federally insured institution has been paying several times that in recent years, sometimes an entire order of magnitude more, for doing absolutely nothing except existing in a different building. On a modest cushion, that gap is the difference between earning enough to cover one nice dinner over a year and earning enough to actually matter. On a larger cushion, built over several years, it's the difference between a few hundred and a few thousand, for a decision that takes about 10 minutes and zero ongoing effort. This is the part of the quiet position that costs nothing and requires no willpower whatsoever. And it's the part almost everyone skips because moving money somewhere new feels like a chore instead of a rule worth having. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because the next 2 rules are the ones most people skip entirely, and skipping them is exactly why the gap between the 2 people at that table keeps getting wider every single year. Rule 4 is the one that actually put weight behind everything else, and it's the one Marcus is the most stubborn about. Whenever his income moved up, his fixed costs were not allowed to move up with it. Not the apartment, not the car, not the recurring subscriptions that quietly multiply when nobody's watching the total. Every raise, every bonus, every bit of extra income got split in a fixed ratio he decided on once, and never renegotiated in a moment of excitement. A meaningful share went straight into the accounts already doing the compounding work, and only a smaller, already decided share was allowed to actually change his day-to-day life. This is the rule that makes the most people watching this video the most uncomfortable, because it directly contradicts the instinct that a raise exists to be felt immediately. Tyler's income has gone up twice in the last 2 years. His fixed monthly costs have gone up almost exactly as much both times, on a new lease and a bigger apartment, which means his actual financial position, the number that matters, hasn't moved even though his income has. He is, in every real sense, running in place at a slightly nicer pace. Rule 5 is about where the money actually goes once it clears rules 1 through 4, and it's the least exciting rule on this entire list, which is exactly why it works. No single stock picks, no timing the market around headlines, no chasing whatever performed best last year. A low-cost, broad index fund, funded on a fixed schedule regardless of what the market did that week, doing the unglamorous job of simply owning a small slice of the entire economy and letting it compound without interference. The kind of employer retirement match that many companies offer, often matching a meaningful portion of an early contribution, gets captured completely, every single pay period, because turning it down is the same as declining part of your own paycheck. None of this requires expertise. It requires exactly one decision, repeated without emotion, for a very long time. That's the whole engine. It's not a secret formula. It's the same formula available to nearly everyone reading a pay stub, and almost nobody uses it consistently enough for it to actually work. Share this with the one person you know who just signed something they never ran the second price on, because this specific rule right here is the one that actually would have changed their whole year. Here's the part of this story that flips the entire table, and it happened at a birthday dinner almost identical to the one you just watched open this video. Someone leaned over to Marcus, half joking, and asked if he needed money, because he'd ordered water and the cheapest thing on the menu, while everyone else ordered freely. She genuinely thought the quiet guy at the end of the table was the one falling behind. She had it backwards, and so, probably, did you for the first few minutes of this video. Tyler looks like the one who's ahead. New lease, new gadget, easy tap of the card, a story to tell at every dinner. But run the actual numbers, most people never bother running. His fixed monthly obligations, stacked from 2 lease cycles and a bigger apartment he upgraded into the moment his income allowed it, now consume a share of his paycheck so large that a single rough month, one cut in hours, one slow quarter at his company, turns into a real problem instead of an inconvenience. He has no real cushion sitting in a high-yield account because there's nothing left after the fixed costs to put into one. He has no meaningful index fund position quietly compounding in the background because Rule 4 never got applied. He looks like the one with options. He is, by every honest measure, the one with the fewest options at the table. Marcus, the one everyone assumed might need help, is the only person at either dinner who could lose his job tomorrow and still make every payment for the better part of a year without changing a single habit. That's not a coincidence, and it's not luck. It's 4 boring rules, applied without interruption, for long enough that the results stopped being visible to anyone who wasn't looking directly at the account. Which brings up the last rule, the one that ties every other rule together. Marcus never once needed anyone at that table to know any of this. The quiet position isn't quiet by accident. It's quiet because announcing it would trade a real, compounding advantage for a few seconds of social approval, and that trade is almost always a bad one. Public data on how much of every paycheck Americans actually keep has hovered, in recent readings, in the low single digits as a share of income, meaning most people are holding on to only a few cents of every dollar that comes in. Marcus, across the years he built this, was holding on to a share several multiples higher than that, month after month, without a single person at that table ever knowing the number. That's the actual finish line of everything above, not a flashy purchase that announces the result. A number sitting quietly in an account nobody photographs that keeps growing whether or not anyone at dinner ever finds out it exists. There's a quieter reason all 6 rules held for as long as they needed to, and it isn't discipline in the dramatic sense people imagine when they picture someone gritting their teeth through a decade of sacrifice. It's closer to boredom, on purpose. A few months after that dinner, Tyler was already circling a new listing on his phone in the parking lot outside the gym, describing the next upgrade before the current one had a full year on it. Nobody pushed him toward it directly. The push came from somewhere quieter than that, the same cultural hum that tells everyone at that table they're supposed to look like they've already arrived, even the ones who haven't come close. Marcus never had to fight that hum with pure willpower, because he stopped treating it as a decision that needed fighting at all. The account did the deciding automatically. The second price got checked before the excitement had a chance to talk him out of it, and the lifestyle simply never moved when the income did. There was nothing left to resist in the moment, because the moment had already been handled weeks earlier by a version of him that wasn't standing in a parking lot feeling the pull of a shinier upgrade. That's the actual difference between people who keep this up for a year and the people who keep it up for a decade. It was never about who wants it more. None of this required a bigger income than Tyler's. Most months, for a long stretch of this story, it was close to identical. It required 6 decisions, made once each, and then defended quietly against every single moment that tried to talk them out of existing. Automate before the emotion arrives. Price the second cost before the first one gets swiped. Move the cushion somewhere it actually earns something. Freeze the lifestyle when the income moves. Let a boring fund do the unglamorous work of compounding. And never, under any circumstance, explain any of it to the table. If any part of this described someone you know, or described you a little more than you'd like to admit, that's not an accident either. This is exactly the story that plays out at tables like that one every single week, with different names attached. The only real question left is which side of that table you're planning on sitting at 5 years from now, and whether you're willing to start the account nobody sees before the next lease gets signed in front of you. Whitfield Money is where these stories keep getting told, one quiet account at a time.